The cameras were rolling. Security was watching. And what happened next in that dimly lit backstage corridor has sent shockwaves through the entire WWE universe that nobody saw coming. Becky Lynch and Paul Heyman. A kiss. And before you click away thinking this is just another clickbait rumor, I need you to understand something. This isn't speculation. This isn't fantasy booking. Multiple sources have confirmed what went down, and the implications of this moment could literally reshape everything we thought we knew about WWE's power structure. So buckle up, because what I'm about to reveal will make you question every alliance, every storyline, and every backstage relationship in World Wrestling Entertainment. Let me paint you the picture of exactly what transpired, because the details matter here. It was approximately 2 hours before a major televised event, and tensions were already running high. Becky Lynch had just finished a heated exchange with management about her upcoming storyline direction. She was frustrated, visibly angry, and storming through the backstage area with that fire in her eyes that made her the man in the first place. Now, Paul Heyman was supposedly there handling business for his clients, doing what he does best, manipulating situations and working angles. But what nobody expected was these two crossing paths in that specific moment, in that specific location, away from the main production area where most personnel congregate. Here's where it gets absolutely insane. According to eyewitnesses who were present, Becky turned a corner near the equipment storage area, and there was Heyman, standing with his phone, seemingly waiting. Not for a client. Not for a producer. The body language, according to those who saw it, suggested he was waiting for her. They exchanged words. Brief. Intense. And then it happened. Paul Heyman, the wise man, the special counsel, the man who has stood beside legends and created careers, leaned in and kissed Becky Lynch. And she didn't pull away. She didn't slap him. She didn't react with shock or disgust. For approximately 4 to 5 seconds, according to multiple accounts, Becky Lynch and Paul Heyman shared a kiss that has left everyone who knows about it absolutely speechless. Now, I know what you're thinking. This has to be for a storyline, right? This has to be WWE creative setting up some elaborate angle that's going to play out on television. And that's exactly what I thought too, until I started digging deeper. Because here's the thing that makes this situation so much more complicated and so much more real than any scripted moment. This wasn't filmed for broadcast. There were no camera operators positioned for the perfect angle. There was no dramatic music. No lighting setup. This was captured on security footage and possibly someone's cell phone from a distance. This was a private moment that was never intended for public consumption, which raises the most disturbing question of all. If this wasn't scripted, then what exactly is going on between these two? Let's talk about the context that makes this even more explosive. Becky Lynch has been married to Seth Rollins since 2021. They have a daughter together. They're one of WWE's power couples, constantly posting about their family life, their love for each other, and building what appeared to be an unshakable bond both in and out of the ring. Seth Rollins, for his part, has been dealing with his own storyline pressures and injuries, but by all accounts, their relationship has been solid. So where does Paul Heyman fit into this picture? A man who's nearly 20 years older, who's been married himself, who's known more for his silver tongue and backstage manipulation than any romantic entanglements. This isn't just shocking because of who they are individually. It's shocking because it makes absolutely no logical sense unless there's something much deeper happening behind the scenes. And speaking of what's happening behind the scenes, we need to discuss the power dynamics at play here. Paul Heyman isn't just another personality in WWE. This is a man who has the ear of management, who influences creative decisions, who has been integral to some of the biggest storylines in modern wrestling history. His connection to Roman Reigns elevated the bloodline to legendary status. His historical work with Brock Lesnar redefined what a special attraction could be. Heyman operates on a different level than almost anyone else in that company. So if he's involved with Becky Lynch in any capacity beyond professional, the implications are staggering. Is he influencing her booking? Is he helping her navigate backstage politics? Or is there something genuinely personal developing that could tear apart families and destroy reputations? Let's examine Becky's recent behavior, because in retrospect, there have been signs that something was different. Over the past few months, she's been more outspoken about creative frustrations. She's been pushing back against booking decisions in ways that seemed unusual even for someone with her level of star power. There have been reports of her having private meetings with higher UPS, meetings that didn't include Seth Rollins despite him being equally invested in WWE's direction. She's also been photographed backstage in areas where she normally wouldn't be, having conversations with people outside her usual circle. At the time, nobody thought much of it. Now, everything gets re-examined through a completely different lens. And Paul Heyman's behavior hasn't been normal either. For someone who's usually attached at the hip to his clients, there have been notable absences. Times when he should have been with Roman Reigns but wasn't. Periods where his presence was expected but he was nowhere to be found. When asked about it, the explanations were always vague: personal business, handling private matters, taking care of things behind the scenes. Nobody questioned it because, well, he's Paul Heyman. The man operates in shadows. But what if those shadows weren't about business deals or creative meetings? What if they were about something far more personal and far more scandalous? Here's what makes this situation even more volatile. The wrestling industry is notoriously tight-lipped about backstage relationships and controversies until they absolutely explode into the public sphere. Remember when everyone denied the Maxine Dupri and Bobby Lashley situation until photos surfaced? Remember how long the Samantha Irvin and Ricochet relationship was kept quiet? WWE has a vested interest in controlling narratives, especially when those narratives involve top stars and could damage the company's family-friendly image. So if this kiss actually happened, and if it represents something more than a one-time mistake, you better believe that WWE is in full crisis management mode right now. Think about the conversations that must be happening behind closed doors. Seth Rollins, if he knows, has to be absolutely losing his mind. This isn't just about personal betrayal, though that would be devastating enough. This is about his professional life, his standing in the company, and his ability to work alongside people who may have betrayed his trust. How do you go out there and perform in front of thousands of people when your personal life is imploding? How do you cut promos about loyalty and brotherhood when your wife might be involved with one of the industry's most influential figures? The psychological warfare that must be happening is almost unimaginable. And what about Roman Reigns? Paul Heyman's most famous client, the man he stood beside through the entire Bloodline saga, the person whose career he helped elevate to unprecedented heights. If Roman finds out that his Wiseman has been involved in something this messy and this distracting, how does that affect their relationship? Roman has built his entire empire on loyalty, on family, on the idea that the ones closest to you are ride or die. If Heyman has been sneaking around, compromising his judgment, and potentially creating a massive backstage controversy, does that loyalty still hold? Or does Roman cut ties with the man who helped make him the tribal chief? Let's talk about the locker room reaction, because that's where this gets really interesting. Wrestling locker rooms are like small towns. Everyone knows everyone's business, and secrets don't stay secret for long. If multiple people witnessed this kiss or heard about it, you can bet it's been the topic of countless conversations in every corner of the backstage area. Some wrestlers probably don't believe it. Some are waiting for more information. And some are absolutely livid because this kind of drama affects everyone. It changes the atmosphere. It creates tension. It makes people choose sides. And in an environment where you need to trust your coworkers to keep you safe in the ring, that erosion of trust can be dangerous. There's also the question of what WWE management knows and what they're planning to do about it. Vince McMahon may be gone, but Triple H runs creative now, and he's not going to want this kind of distraction threatening the company's momentum. Do they address it head-on? Do they turn it into a storyline to control the narrative? Do they keep everyone separated and hope it blows over? Each option has massive implications. If they ignore it and more evidence surfaces, they look incompetent. If they lean into it for a storyline, they're potentially destroying real relationships for entertainment. If they try to keep people separated, they're admitting there's something to separate them from, which validates the entire controversy. And let's be brutally honest about something else: the double standard in how this will be perceived. If this story gains traction, Becky Lynch will be absolutely eviscerated by certain segments of the fanbase and media. She'll be called every name in the book. Her character will be questioned. Her family will be brought into it. Meanwhile, Paul Heyman, despite being equally responsible if this is real, will probably face less scrutiny because that's unfortunately how these situations often play out. The woman is judged more harshly, the man is either pitted or celebrated, and the actual truth gets lost in the noise of everyone's opinions and agendas. But here's what we actually need to focus on: evidence, verification, truth. Because in the age of social media and instant reactions, it's incredibly easy for rumors to spiral out of control. It's easy for a misunderstood moment to become a scandal. It's easy for people with access to grind to spread false information. So while multiple sources are saying this kiss happened, we need to see receipts. We need to see that security footage. We need statements from people who were actually there. We need something more concrete than whispers and second-hand accounts before we completely destroy people's reputations and relationships. That being said, the silence from all parties involved is deafening. Becky Lynch hasn't addressed it. Paul Heyman hasn't addressed it. Seth Rollins hasn't addressed it. WWE hasn't released any statement. And that silence, in many ways, speaks volumes. Because if this was completely false, if this was just malicious gossip with no basis in reality, you'd expect immediate and forceful denials. You'd expect lawyers getting involved. You'd expect public statements setting the record straight. Instead, we have nothing but silence and an entertainment industry holding its collective breath waiting for the other shoe to drop. The timing of this couldn't be worse for WWE. They're building toward major premium live events. They're trying to maintain momentum from a successful year. They're negotiating new deals and expanding their global presence. The last thing they need is a backstage scandal involving some of their most prominent personalities. But maybe that's exactly why this leaked now. Maybe someone wanted to cause maximum damage. Maybe there are people backstage who are tired of certain individuals getting preferential treatment. Maybe this is part of a larger power struggle that we're not privy to. In WWE, nothing happens in a vacuum, and every controversy serves someone's interests. So where does this leave us? With more questions than answers. With a potential scandal that could reshape WWE's landscape. With families possibly being torn apart. With careers potentially being damaged. And with a fanbase that's absolutely rabid for more information. This is the kind of story that takes on a life of its own, that dominates social media, that gets discussed on every wrestling podcast and YouTube channel. This is the kind of controversy that people will remember years from now, regardless of how it ultimately resolves. If you've made it this far, you understand why I needed to bring this to your attention. This isn't gossip for gossip's sake. This is about accountability, truth, and understanding the real dynamics of an industry we're all passionate about. If you believe this story needs more attention, hit that like button. If you have information about what really happened, drop it in the comments. If you think I'm missing something or seeing connections that aren't there, let me know. This channel exists because of you, because of this community's desire to dig deeper than surface-level storylines and understand what's really happening in professional wrestling. And if you're not subscribed yet, I need you to understand something. Moments like this, stories like this, they don't get covered everywhere. A lot of channels will ignore this until it's officially confirmed or deny it exists to protect relationships with WWE. But we're not here to play politics. We're here to discuss the truth, the uncomfortable truths, the stories that matter to you as fans. So if you appreciate that approach, if you want to be part of a community that doesn't shy away from difficult topics, subscribe. Not because I'm begging, but because you deserve a channel that respects your intelligence and your right to know what's really happening. The Becky Lynch and Paul Heyman situation is far from over. In fact, it might just be beginning. More information will emerge. More people will talk. And the fallout from whatever the truth is will reverberate through WWE for months or even years to come. Stay tuned, stay skeptical, and stay hungry for the real story behind the spectacle. This is Ring Rumble, and we're just getting started.